Welcome to Grad Guidance, career tips and tools for graduate students. I'm your host, Allie Irk, Associate Director of Graduate Student Career Development at Lehigh University. In this episode, we'll be discussing managing stress during the job search, featuring Shamell Brandon, staff psychologist at Lehigh University's Counseling and Psychological Services. Welcome to Grad Guidance. Today we have a special guest, Chamel Brandon. Thanks for joining today.
Hi, it's great to be here.
So we're going to be talking about managing stress during the job search. And before we dive into the topic, I was wondering if you could share more about your current role and your professional background.
Yeah, so my name is Dr. Shamell Brandon. I'm fine with just Shamell. I work at Lehigh University's Counseling Center. I'm one of the staff psychologists there. So I provide individual and group counseling. I conduct outreach, community level interventions, and I also supervise graduate students who are completing their doctorate in psychology, also postdoctoral residents, and I do a little research when I can get that into.
That's great. So it sounds like you have a lot of different activities and ways that you support students here at Lehigh. So in thinking about the job search process, there's many steps involved. It takes time. And although it can be very exciting, there can also be some challenges associated with this time period for students. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the stressors that graduate students face during an active job search.
I think the biggest stressor is around doubt in the process. And it's not the presence of doubt that's the stressor, because landing a job or landing your dream job or a job that works, it's a probabilistic event. It's not a guarantee, it's a probability. So doubt is natural, like doubt should be there when we're talking about probabilities. So it itself isn't the problem, but the struggle with doubt. A lot of times when folks come into the counseling center around these issues, it's a hard struggle with the fact that I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to get a job, or being terrorized by the thoughts of what if this, what if that. That can go on forever because, again, we're talking about probabilities, so there isn't a guarantee. Struggling with doubt, big stressor that can live for a long time and even rob your sleep late at night. You can be working through, how can I guarantee, how can I guarantee, how can I avoid not having a job? Another stressor that's similar with doubt, that's natural to be expected, but the struggle with it can create additional distress, is loss, loss of familiarity, loss of the routine that folks have developed for 4 or 5, 2 years. They've gotten used to a certain way of being, and now they have to lose that. Relationships that they might have developed, connections to a city, and that can bring up some difficulty. And I think the struggle with that, whether clinging too tightly or trying to ignore it and sort of not give it its attention and care, can produce a lot of stress. And lastly, transitions, I think, is also another stressor in the process. And this can happen before someone even lands a job, because our minds can sort of have us living through the transition before we even gotten a call back or landed a job. We can be thinking through, will I be accepted? Is this the right job for me? How will I know if I can make it? What if I don't know that or this? All of those transition difficulties can produce a lot of stress for folks if it's met with challenge and struggle versus, yeah, these are to be expected when I'm moving into a new phase in my life. How can I make space for them and just hop into it like an explorer?
I think those are some excellent points. I think certainly uncertainty and change, this can bring some feelings of stress for anyone. But I really want to focus in on the point you were just talking about towards the end. And it sounded like the way you approach these challenges, the way that you frame them really makes a difference. I think it's the perfect time to talk about what strategies do you suggest that graduate students employ to effectively manage stress during the
Yeah.
job search process?
Yeah, the way that we orient to our experience can have a big impact on how it lands for us, on how we step up to it. I want folks to know that I'm not saying that you should just think positively and only see like the positive good things. I'm just saying make sure that you don't just see the threats, the terrors, and the possible negatives. That's what I'm saying, is to make sure that your perspective is open enough to see that, yeah, there's probabilities here that I'm gonna encounter disappointment. There's also probabilities here that I'll be surprised. There's also probabilities that, yeah, I knocked that interview out of the park and I know it and they know it. All of those probabilities are there. Can we stay open to all of that? Again, that's the explorer mindset. That's the explorer orientation. And I think that can keep us nimble, flexible, resilient in the process, versus if we're running through it not like an explorer, but like we're running through our life like we're being chased by like the worst case scenario, and we're doing everything that we can not to get eaten by it. That's just the stress. Like, it's stressful to even describe that, let alone live that way. Um, so that's an overall helpful strategy. Things that we can do specifically to help with that, and the practice stepping up to being an explorer, is to clarify, maybe even write down notes, not what I hope to avoid or what I don't want to have happen. Like, I hope I can get a job so that I'm not like poor, or that I didn't just waste all my time. But to write down, what am I looking for in the workplace? What kind of environment would I like to approach? When you start clarifying those things, then it's almost like, what is an explorer hoping to find as they're moving forward? You know, what are the treasures that we hope, if they're out there, I'll be able to uncover? And writing those things down specifically, along with like, all right, well, where do I want to live? All those other things, that can be helpful for us to orient to some of the other things that are available in this process. Another thing is, don't go at it alone. Um, Utilize the resources represented by this very interview. We have folks whose whole job it is to provide support in this process, who wants to help you like achieve your potential. Utilize those resources. And a lot of us also have people in our lives too who are working sort of for free to do the same thing. They're called our loved ones. They're there to support us, encourage us, explore with us. Utilize those resources. Why not?
I think those are so many great tips for students when they're going through this process. I think gaining clarity, not going it alone, all of those things are going to help tremendously. I also like the action steps, writing things down, making it tangible. I think that's excellent. Speaking of resources and support, I know you touched on this a little bit, but I'm wondering if you could elaborate on resources and support that students could maybe tap into, and specifically if they feel like maybe this is getting overwhelming. So maybe they're trying some of those kind of initial strategies, and then they're thinking maybe they need more support. If you could touch on that.
Yeah, so I think this is what the scenario that you're describing is a good place for talking about the role of mentors, role models, advisors. I think turning towards those resources are really important, because I think sometimes when things feel really overwhelming, we've probably drifted into the mindset of like, I need to get it perfect or else it's ruinous, like all or nothing with that. And in fact, a career journey, your first stop on it isn't the last stop on it. The first job you might get out of undergrad or graduate school might not be the last place you work. In fact, it's less likely, more and more, to be the last place that you work. Um, so the journey isn't over. And if we can see that, like, I still have freedom, I'll still have choice after I get through this leg, sometimes that can open things up and make it a little less overwhelming. mentors and advisors can represent that fact and reality for us really well, especially if they're more older mentors who have gone through different jobs, who've worked in different places, who've been in the career for a number of years and can help model that this is a reality and a fact. That not all of our eggs are in this very next step. We got a lot more steps, hopefully, to live. And our mentors can be really great at showing us that. And those can be mentors on campus or in your life, in family or in practicum sites, internships, workplaces that you've been at. Those are another great resource. Counseling is available for these concerns as well, helping you to remember how to step up to the challenges in life, to show up for it, to be a bit more encouraging, compassionate, and supportive to yourself, rather than, mean and overbearing. That stuff adds to it being more overwhelming. And again, family and loved ones. These are some of the best supports for us because they're often more accessible than anybody else. A counselor, maybe you could see at most once a week, but a loved one, they can be there for you day in and day out, just like we're often there for them in that way. Those are also helpful. And when I mentioned role models, those can also be really motivating for us too, to remind ourselves of those stories or to explore it so that we can see, like, often the people we admire, their journey wasn't just step after step of success. It was a lot of failing and learning that then set them up for a big payoff down the line. So I think that could be helpful to see the failures, missteps, learnings, and perseverance of those we look up to in our field, can really be helpful resources for this process.
Wow. Yeah. What strikes me about that is just that there's so many rich opportunities to learn from those around us. And I think you pointed it out so well, of just all the sources of support within our own network, the people that are in our lives, the people we care about, advisors, your career coach. And I love that you pointed out the counseling support available at Lehigh as well. So there is no reason to go it alone. There's lots of sources of support. I'm thinking, any final words of advice or encouragement that you would offer graduate students who are thinking of maybe launching a job search, or maybe they're thinking of making a change or advancing in their career? What types of things would you suggest?
Some of it would be a review of, see if you can step into being that explorer versus somebody who's like being chased by the worst case scenario. Um, the worst case scenario might be out there, and that's okay to recognize that and to make space for it. But see if you can also see that it's not the only thing that's possible of happening in this scenario too. Get support so that even if the probability comes up that the scenario that you viewed as worse is something that you'll have to persevere through and encounter, if you got support, you got an army, you got a wealth of resources that can help you through it. And the worst case scenario starts to feel a little less heavy to hold when you're not the only one who's going to be responsible for holding it up. So that's going to be really important. And the other thing is to see if you can make the job search like a job for yourself, where you have a time where you clock in and a time when you clock out, so that it doesn't become all that your life is for 2 months, 3 months, or a year. There's a lot of your life to be lived. The job search is going to be really important for a lot of reasons, absolutely. So dedicate hours to it, but be mindful of not dedicating all of your hours to it. That won't be sustainable, likely, if you need to persist for longer in that process than you had hoped for. So clock in, clock out for it. Um, and then the last thing is just to remember, like, where you've come from. Everyone who's likely going to be viewing this video has probably already survived all of the worst things that have ever happened to them, literally, because if you're still standing right now, you're still standing, and those things are behind you. You can endure, you can survive, you can make it through the next things that life is going to throw at you. We've all had unbeaten streaks with like making it through it. Again, if you're here to view this video, those are facts. Remember that, you've graduated grad school. That's really tough. This person who did that can be capable of making it through to get the career that they want, even if it's not the first career that they get.
Those are excellent points. I think focusing on themes of resilience and celebrating your accomplishments. And I loved what you said about being intentional with your time and setting aside time for the things that matter in your life while you're going through a job search. And the final word that I would say, which I loved also that you highlighted, is to be proactive and reach out for support. So here in the Career Center, we are here to equip you, empower you, along with all the different campus resources you have and faculty on campus here at Lehigh. Thank you so much, Shamell, for all of your wonderful insights and tips that you shared today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So tune in next time to Grad Guidance, Career Tips and Tools for Graduate Students. We're talking about topics that are important to graduate students as you're going through your career journey. Here are some of the strategies we discussed for managing stress during the job search. Create a list of what is important to you to guide the process. Set reasonable expectations and celebrate your progress. Make time for people and activities in your life. Talk to others who can support and mentor you, and access support from the Career Center. To learn more about the Center for Career and Professional Development, visit the link below. Counseling and Psychological Services, UCPS, supports Lehigh students in a variety of ways, including individual counseling, group counseling, 24/7 crisis support, parent and peer consultation, as well as campus outreach and programming to support peak performance. For more information, visit the link below.